Okay, 6:30, we'll open the budget committee meeting.
And I will open the select board meeting, town of Enfield.
So, the first thing on, shall we start with budget? Do we need to do the minutes for that, or?
Yeah, they don't have a minute.
Oh, okay. Has everyone had an opportunity to look at the minutes and, can I hear a motion to put them on the floor?
So moved.
Are there any, corrections or any omissions or?
I know everyone's gonna be ready to throw stones at me, but whatever. For, corrections, additions that I would like to offer, and it's not additions in addition to, I actually listened to the tape a second time. And it's just information that I feel is important to include. So under the first thing, under budget update,
What line is that?
46.
Okay,
I would like to add, a note, in the ambulance information that currently Lebanon charges $365 per call to Enfield. Just so people are reading these minutes are aware of that.
and that was mentioned in our discussion.
Yep, and it was also on the YouTube video, because I listened to it twice. And I have a copy of all of these, Alyssa, that I'll give you, so you don't have to think. Yep.
Line 50 is missing a zero after the 370,000. Sorry, I interrupted.
That's okay.
Oh, it's. Is that, did you have anything else to add?
Yep. On 59 under audit update, I would like to add a note saying following information about the software, to add this note, current software has been in place since 2018. Just so if people are wondering, why are we changing, or how long has that been there? Under number 72, public safety facility. Ed had mentioned that the cost of the safety facility has a guaranteed maximum plus change orders. And I feel like this information is really important, my additional note, so that people know that Ed is trying to make savings where there's possible. An extended signed contract with Dead River allowed the ability to have tanks installed with no cost versus paying $10,000. And the current rate for propane is $1.63 a gallon, and the new contract will be rack plus 43 cents. Because I think it's important that people aren't saying, well, they're spending all this money and there's quite a savings. My last correction on number 78 for Lakeside Park. When I asked my question about the budget being over, Ed did answer my question and said that it's no longer true and the project is back on track with a small amount of money left. And then at the end of the paragraph, I'd like to add, which was discussed, currently the pavilion is only rented to Enfield residents, but when there are federal monies involved, the town cannot indicate just Enfield residents, and possibly a discount will be given to residents. So those are my changes. All those are.
Anyone else have anything? So shall I hear a motion to approve as amended?
I'll make a motion to approve these changes. Or second.
Second,
I second.
Oh, sorry. all in favor?
Aye.
Well, I think when I opened, I should have said this is this meeting is select board and budget committee. So the first thing on the business is budget committee schedule, holidays.
So in your packet is a draft
still a draft schedule. If you look on there, there's two highlighted sections, Thursday, November 21st and Thursday, December 19th. What I did, both of those normally, if you fell in the order that we're meeting, would fall on Thanksgiving and Christmas. And I thought to keep 2 meetings per month, if we just move those up a week, we'd meet 2 weeks in a row, which would be hard to get information back, but it would keep us meeting and give us a chance to talk through. The first one's real easy. DPW will be here to talk about their budget. And the second one, you know, if we need it, it's already scheduled to just continue budget review near the end. So wanted to see if the budget committee was okay with that. If you are, I think we're at a place where I can make this the official budget calendar and we'll move forward.
Any comments?
Nope.
That makes sense.
Do you want a motion on that?
No, if you guys are okay with it, we'll just go ahead and schedule this.
So the next thing on is our budget update.
All right, so I kind of went over some of this at the last budget meeting, and I've also talked to the select board, but I wanted to go a little bit more in detail on kind of where we are on a budget, where we are on cash flow basis, those things. And I thought this would be a good meeting with everybody sitting at the same table to talk about that. As I've mentioned to both groups, we had the $170,000 hit to the budget from the second unbudgeted public safety building payment we had to make. With that, I think we're doing pretty good at managing our way out of this. As I mentioned at the last meeting, health benefits looks like we're gonna come in 100,000 plus under budget in that area. Pretty much all of that is due to either changes in plans to a reduced cost plan or staffing that was not staffed that we didn't have. I do believe that number's continuing to grow. I don't have an exact number for you, but we do have a full-time position for groundskeeper that's open. And it looks like at this point that it's gonna be open for a little while. We're making some changes to what we want to do, and DPW is looking at it, but we're also purposefully talking about keeping that open to hold that, the benefit and plus the salary that's coming from that. With that, I've talked to all the departments. They're gonna be putting together a better number for me of what they think they'll be contributing back from their budget, trying to do some savings. Fire estimates right now that they think they'll have about 20,000 coming back. Just looking at police overtime, police salaries and some of the lines today. I haven't talked to the police chief, but it appears that will be approximately 20,000 or so in the police department. And in the salary lines alone in DPW, I think we'll be close to that too. So that puts us in that 160, 150, 160 range. So I think we're getting really close to managing that out. That's not counting some other small lines here and there throughout the budget. So I'm feeling a little more comfortable with that. I did talk to you guys last time about ambulance being over budget. I just estimated that today, quickly looking at what's been spent to date, estimating our payroll moving forward and what I think that might be. Of course, it depends on how many ambulance calls we get, those types of things, but I'm gonna estimate somewhere that will be around $7,000 over budget come the end of the year. If I just look at training and travel mostly in our department, but losing a few other departments. As I told you last meeting, I put a stop to training and excess travel that doesn't need to happen. I believe we'll have over $6,000 in savings there, maybe even in excess of that 7,000 if I went through the whole budget pulling that out. So I think we can offset that as well. The only other one that I'm watching closely is legal. We're slightly over budget on that right now. And as most of you probably know, we have an appeal going to the housing court for Laramie Farms. So we'll be continuing to watch that budget closely, but I don't think it's going to be excessive. So with that, I'm still watching the budget closely, but confident that we're going to be really, really close. On expenditures, if we look at the overall summary, as we were talking a little bit before the meeting, we should be at about 34.4% of budget, and right now we're at 34.6. So we're trending on track, and then those things that I told you about are things that we're expecting not to spend moving forward. So I think we're headed in a good direction on expenditures, and we'll continue to manage, hopefully, to come in on budget. With that, I wanted to go through some things in the revenue side. I kind of went through just section by section to bring those up to date. Property tax payments are doing well. I don't have the exact percentage in front of me, but we're over 90% paid. We usually are probably in the high 90s. With that, if you look at delinquent tax interest rates and stuff, we're trending as normal. So we're not falling behind. Things are doing good. People are paying their property taxes. License permit fees are doing well. They're trending actually a little bit over what we had budgeted. Motor vehicle permits are doing much better this year. I think we had a little downturn after COVID and with the spike in interest rates, but we're trending back on track for those to do well.
Any estimates on dollar amounts for that at this point?
We won't have an end of year estimate. I could do the math real quick on what we've taken in to date divided by 8 times 12, and that'll put you, it's around the 114,000 mark. I think I did do it a little bit earlier to see how we were trending. So it's over the 1,030,000 that we had budgeted. So I think we're going to be a little over there. Federal government, that looks really low, but we're starting to get money in now. We just got a report today that we're looking at some FEMA money coming in. And then we're also just turned in our first reimbursement for the byways grant, which will be federal money coming back. And we may have gotten that today already. I submitted it yesterday. It'd be the fastest turnaround I've seen from the state in a long time, but so we have that coming in. On the state of New Hampshire, they always pay us in that October, November timeframe. I had a little concern earlier, but I think we're going to be okay. The legislature did change the meals and rooms tax from 8.5% to 7.9%, trying to help some businesses and increase tourism. I reread that law and some of the changes, and in that law, they also changed our allocation from 30% to 40%. So I'm feeling pretty good that we're going to be in the ballpark. But when I did some research online, I couldn't find any trends or if New Hampshire thinks they're on track for that. So we'll just have to kind of wait and see. But I'm fairly confident that those will be really close to on budget. Revenue from services are down slightly. I don't think it's a lot, and I didn't write down the number.
What page you on now?
I'm moving to page 2, well, it's the bottom, the revenue chart from charges and services, and the totals of that are at the bottom. Percent collected is 62%, so it's slightly below the trending of the 34.4%.
I had a question about the recreation revenue. It seems to be about less than half what it's budgeted.
Well, and we also have the 16,000 in there, I think, for youth sports, and we didn't start that in the beginning of the year. That started in the fall. So that one's definitely going to be a little lower, but it also has an offsetting expense on the other side that's not going to get.
Will we come close to the revenue budget, do you think?
Let me find it in here. I don't think we'll come close to the 16,000.
67,000 is the revenue budget.
Yeah, I don't think we'll come close to that. Like I said, we planned on kind of starting in the baseball season and we didn't do that. So all the revenue from baseball won't be in there that we expected to be in there, but we also had no expenditures on the other side that we budgeted for. So I'm happy with where we're at on recreation. We just may not meet this.
Which towns have like kicked in their share?
Everybody but Graff. So, which is a very small portion, and I'm gonna revisit with them soon, so. with that, I mean, just little stuff. Miscellaneous is trending higher. I have some good news there that I'll talk to at the end. Interfund transfers will be coming as projects come. Fund balance, we always move at the end of the year and we only move what we need to move. So, you know, we're not gonna just move all of that because we said that's what we're gonna move. We'll move what we need to move to make budget. Overall revenue picture's good. We're headed in the right direction. The big good news, I guess I'll say, and I've told some people, but, when we pulled the $7.2 million, bond money, we got to a point in this last year where we had to pull the entire amount before we spent it. Sat down with Sasha Holland, our treasurer, and we put together a plan to invest those in CDs at a little over 5%. And we staggered those CDs so they would come due as we needed those payments. With that, it looks like we're trending when the last CD closes to have a revenue of $75,000 from interest on those.
Not bad.
Good for the budget. Again, that doesn't help us on the expense side, so we'll continue trying to manage things out. We're gonna be doing the MS 434 soon, and we'll be putting that in there. It should help on the tax rate side of things as moving forward, but we'll be looking at a few other projects and stuff as well. So we're happy on that, and hopefully that brings the tax rate in a little bit lower than we expected. Any questions? Oh, I'll do cash flow real quick and then I'll take cash. I gave you another spreadsheet in there. It's not all of our bank accounts, but I pulled what I thought was the pertinent one. The biggest one obviously is the operations account, has $4.1 million in there.
What page are you on?
On the back of
It's
his
at the
letter.
very, very back. It's a spreadsheet in there right before the letter. So those are just quick bank account balances as of September 9th. Operations, 4,135,330. I just want to point that out so everybody knows we're in a pretty good cash flow situation. We're not going to be looking at taking out notes for tax anticipation, any of those types of things. Our construction account right now is down to 615,000. So we are talking and we will be pulling the Whitney Hall loan. I'll be talking with Sasha again, looking at our overall expenses and how we can replenish the public safety one because we're still building that. And if we can put it in a short-term CD or something and get some more interest, we'll continue to do that. Conservation fund is at 17,671. That's a restricted account, but I thought it was good for people to know how much was in that account. And then the town clerk account sitting at 99,897. We try to hold that on a weekly, bi-weekly basis at about 50, and that the excess of that will be rolling into the operations account. So they just have account. There's money coming in and out from revenue and to the state and stuff all the time. And then we roll the stuff out that goes in the operating account on a regular basis. But I think those are the major accounts that we have that sit out there that are looking good. We also have money in the Lakeview sewer account, those things. So we're sitting great on those. I didn't put them on here, but we're making payments good. The Lakeview has been really good the last couple years, working with me and the clerk to put pressure on their people that aren't paying. So for the most part, we're really caught up on those payments and things are going well. One other small thing before we take questions. We had approved, this is more of a CIP item, but I thought it was important for the budget committee to know as well. We had approved a $40,000 debt for the sidewalks. As you guys know, DPW worked hard this year to do the sidewalk. We're gonna come in under that 40,000, probably somewhere between the 30,000-40,000 range total. Tracy brought to our attention at the select board meeting that there was a reserve account out there. We have somewhere in the $13,000 to $17,000 range. The trustees are finalizing those numbers to get them to us. So talking with CIP, we're going to work with the select board, hopefully use that money to pay for a chunk of that sidewalk money. And then the rest will come to CIP so we don't have to take a loan and pay finance charges on that. So that's kind of where we're sitting in a cash flow basis. And I think things are good. We don't have updated fund balance numbers and stuff for you. We can take what we had last year minus what we're budgeted to spend at this point, but as those come in from the auditors, we'll get those to you as soon as possible.
Have they given you a projection when they could, make a meeting?
They said the draft audit would probably not be done till late fall, and as I explained, that was our fault.
Yes,
not
well,
their fault. And we're
So
still.
probably
actually-
November before we see them?
Yeah, November, December timeframe. But as soon as we get a draft, we'll get it out to you, and then we'll get them in here to talk as fast as possible.
For the big capital expenditures, some of which are CIP related, but, where do those stand at this point compared to, what was, budgeted to this stage?
Which one are you talking about?
Police or emergency services,
Oh, the big,
office library
oh,
and Mascoma Lakeside Park.
the big buildings. Mascoma Lakeside Park's looking pretty good. I think last time I checked, we had about 20,000 left in that account, and I'm not 100% sure which bills are still gonna be trickling in. We do have some engineering stuff, I think, still hanging out there, and those can gobble stuff up pretty quickly. But I do believe we're gonna be finishing that project on or really, really close to budget. The other two are doing well. Still, I'm gonna say battling Whitney Hall, but we're in that phase where we're debating over change orders and who should pay for what, those types of things. But the allowances, as I've projected or talked, I think I talked to the select board. I don't know if I talked to the budget committee, but, the allowances are coming in good. We had structural allowances. We had some allowances for rot. We had allowances for winter conditions. All of those are coming in well under budget. There's a few other ones that are over, but, I'm fairly confident at this point that we're gonna cover all or most of the elevator costs that we had pulled out of the contract with Breadloaf. So we're happy about that and continuing to work forward, and as soon as I
That's
have
hundred and eighty K.
134, 136, somewhere right in there. So we'll do that. I have some work to do on the bills and things, because we have TIF money allocated for the parking lot section. So some of those are coming through the Breadloaf bills, and I just gotta weed all that out and figure out how we're gonna do that.
Is the elevator required because of ADA? Yeah.
It is, and we went back and forth a little bit at the select board level of, do we just keep the old one and go? And then when we switched to three-phase power, we decided, you know what, let's just upgrade that elevator. Let's get it all done. I was fairly confident at the time, but still a little bit of a gamble to say we thought we could manage that much out of the project. I think we're gonna hit that.
And thank you, Alice, for letting us wreck her front lawn.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been very fortunate. We didn't have to pay for easements.
Yeah, and then public safety building, it's really too early to say where we're gonna be, but, we're coming out of the ground, which is kind of the scary part on that project, and we've had one change order to date, so that's not a lot. We both have contingencies in our budgets for that. The contractor has some, we have some. We did something a little bit different on that project that I'm kind of interested to see the difference between the two projects, because we did not do it in the Whitney Hall project, but in our negotiations in the public safety building, we negotiated to split any contingency that was not spent. So it's giving the contractors incentive to not spend their contingency money. So I'm interested to see how that comes out and how much harder they work to save money moving through this project. So, but as of right now, like I said, both of them have a guaranteed maximum price minus whatever change orders happen during the process. So, it's nice to have a contract that way, that you're not just waiting to see what things cost. We've had a few things on the Breadloaf side. Painters are one of them. They budgeted 86,000 and the budget came in or the painter cost came in at 200,000. Breadloaf had to eat that difference. So we've been working through those things. So having the guaranteed maximum price is a great way to do these contracts.
To Tracy's earlier point on the rec revenue, weren't we planning on more revenue in order to pay for some of the things that we had done, the full-time position, for example? Am I remembering that correctly, or?
What we had planned was that taking over the youth sports.
Right.
Would be bringing in more revenue. It's gonna offset a little bit of the cost, and you know what we're gonna do, we're gonna be paying into that rec fund. They're gonna pay into that rec fund, and then whatever time we're spending,
Fair to say that it's not as high as we thought we were.
the hours have not been as high. We've had a couple hard weeks and we knew those were coming, but we did some math coming out of soccer season. We're not done yet, but coming out of that. And I think our weekly average is gonna be lower than what we thought it was going to be.
Okay.
We may put a little bit more work into pre-planning some things and doing things a little differently. We're already starting to find ways that we can do things more efficiently in the future. And I truly believe that's, as we move into the future of those youth sports, we'll find ways to do things more efficiently and more economically.
We knew the first year, though, that was a select
It's
board
gonna be the
discussion.
hardest year.
The first year is
And
like
we
when you
may
stand up a
need
new
some
business.
Yeah.
We knew it was gonna be a phase and there was gonna be no break even the first year.
Yeah, and I think we might.
Yeah.
The one thing that we did,
That'd be good.
I'm gonna say change, but we changed mentally. There's no real thing written down, but like I said, we were planning on running all the sports for 2024. We ended up starting in the soccer season. So we just made a mental shift that we're gonna run them with the school year. And I can work with everybody, and that'll be soccer, basketball, baseball. It'll also help in the future to coming out of that before we go into next year's budget. We'll know what all the numbers were. We'll know what people were instead of trying to figure that out mid-basketball season. So I think it'll work better. It was delayed, but I think it'll work out and we'll run the sports year that way. Budget wise, it's gonna be calendar year still, but you know, in our numbers in our head, what we're talking to other towns, what they need to pay, we'll go just on the school year calendar and it'll work out.
And you mentioned it, all the towns have paid except Grafton.
Except Grafton so far, and I'll be working with them to see if they can. We didn't do it this season, but if they continue not to play, then we'll just charge them more and to play, and their parents will have to eat that
Yeah.
cost instead of the town playing, so.
Are there a lot of kids from Grafton?
And last time I checked, and I didn't check since soccer season started, but we were going into it and I checked going, you know, we really should have done this a little different. And I looked and there was nobody signed up for Grafton at that time. So I'm sure there's probably a couple kids in there, but it's a very small amount at this point. And I do think our cost overall are gonna be a little lower, so. And that's what I have for 2024. Does anybody have any more questions?
My apologies if I'm asking questions that everybody else already knows.
No, they were good. I just wanted to know, there's a lot of stuff on the CIP, so that's a very general question, but yeah, the buildings, Mascoma Lakeside Park, which isn't CIP, but you know, that's doing okay. The fire truck we're gonna pay for in this next year, but that came in under budget from what we talked about last year by, I'm gonna say quite a bit. I can't remember the number, but we were looking in the 420 range and we were closer to the 390 range now, so it's always good to save money.
And on Lakeside Park, the sailing club and Eva had both committed to chipping in some revenue. Have they been doing so and how are we?
The sailing club's been doing it every year. Eva has not been.
Okay.
We can work with them.
I thought they were trying to write a check.
Trying to do it again and we can definitely
Okay.
take that on. As we talked at the last meeting, I don't plan on spending, because a lot of that was for maintenance money.
Right, yeah.
I don't plan on spending that on mowing and mowing blades and fuel and those types of things. I would like to use that more as we move into the future and now for bigger maintenance items, not annual maintenance items.
So will you be asking us for a perpetual care type fund? Cause like a revolving fund?
No, we take care of our town parks now. It's a very
No, I just didn't know how
minimal
it's gonna work.
expense for them to mow the lawns and keep doing those types of things. So
And the goal of, me as sort of town representative for the, sailing club is to, keep that $2,000 a year, even if the original agreement expires either at the end of this year or, last year, I'm not sure which.
But we're gonna need
I know.
pavilion maintenance and sidewalk maintenance in the future, and I mean, some big ticket items in the long term, so if we could pull money in and let it grow to help doing that. that'd be-
Yeah, I guess that's why I was asking, where is it going to reside?
Well, the select board will have to have that discussion moving
Okay.
forward. I plan on recommending that we keep the Mascoma Lakeside Park Fund that we have established already. And then we can look at, we don't do it right now, but pavilion rentals, those types of things. We could direct that money right back in there to take care of the park itself. And yeah, we could keep accepting donations that way.
Any more questions? Dimitri, you wanna take over the agenda now?
No, you can keep.
Yeah.
I can if you want me to, but I didn't wanna, I don't know what the rules are if I'm late.
Now, the investment revenue is on, that's what you just told us about.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, I just wanted to let you know that, I mean, that was
Mhm.
we pulled that loan and me and Sasha both quickly were like, we can't just let
Yeah.
$7 million sit in a bank account for 0.08%.
Right.
Thank you.
So we made a couple phone calls and we were able, I don't know if you missed this part, but we were able to get, it was over 5, I can't remember what it was, 5.1, 5.2% interest in short term. It was funny, the 3-month CDs actually gave better interest than the 6-month CDs. So we locked them up.
They were all
strategically.
backwards for a while.
We locked them up strategically so they would release money as we needed money to pay for the projects, and it
You went to
Worked out.
Mascoma Bank.
through Mascoma Bank, yeah. And it looks like projected, we're gonna have about 75,000 in revenue from interest, so we're about to pull the other one.
We had a good one on the building too.
Yeah.
Wasn't even advertised. Told us about it.
Couple of small appropriation questions. Whitney Hall maintenance. Would seem to have a balance remaining of about 8,400. Since there's nothing really going on that we're maintaining, can that money be used to help the move?
We added money in there, so we're gonna be using some of that still. Some of that money was added for things that are happening at Los Allet as well.
Sure.
Not maintenance, if you will, but
No,
we
no,
put
but
some
help
money
that.
in there because we didn't have another line item, so. If we have money left over after managing out the issues we're having with the budget, we will definitely use budget money from anywhere in the budget.
To help the move back?
If we have extra DPW money, we can use that to help us move. So.
Yeah.
We're gonna be managing that bottom line, and if we think we're in a good place, we'll do it. The other place, yeah, we'll be looking at.
At Shed Street, we have the apparently outstanding number for the contractor of 53% of that $75,000 budget. We haven't paid that?
No, I think we've already paid that. We'll double check the coding in that line.
Okay, so we paid in the last 2 weeks, then, or 3 weeks.
No, we've paid them a long time ago.
Oh, it wasn't here.
Yeah.
They
They might be coded wrong or something might have happened. We'll
I see.
double check that.
Okay. I want to bring up a tender subject to some people, but help me understand cable access channel one more time.
I'm with you, Tracy.
I'm gonna really preface that as of right now, we pull in approximately $60,000 from cable fees. And we give 50% of whatever we bring in up to $30,000 to the cable access channel.
And the remaining money can go into the general
It goes
budget?
to the general fund, yeah.
I see. And we have an obligation to support that, or that is our decision to support cable access channel?
I would have to look how it's worded in the franchise agreement. I think we would have to continue to receive those funds, I think we'd have to support the cable access channel in some way. And that is the decision we have made, of the 50%.
It's a user tax.
Yeah,
It's not my favorite, but that's what it is.
Yeah.
right, but if we get rid of it, we actually lose money.
Right.
Yeah.
If we can't, yeah, if we get rid of it, then,
We
we
can't
we
tax
don't
people
get
without
that as a
money.
revenue source, is what
Right.
you're saying.
Yeah.
So we could confirm that that is the case, that if we,
We're, as soon
Challenge.
as I can get Comcast to do it, we're up for renewal on our franchise agreement, so it's something we'll be talking about that.
you've mentioned the ambulance, a little bit. I see where we've maxed out the, mutual aid budget on the ambulance.
That's a one-time payment.
I see.
They give us the bill in January, so we can budget to the penny, and then
Right.
we make the payment as soon as town meeting's over. It's due by June, they give it to us in January, and it's for the year prior.
It's yearly trailing arrears.
So
And
that's what I kind of explained that before,
Right.
Yeah.
that we're responding more now, but we already had that bill to pay, but next year's bill should be, I don't wanna say lower, but lower than it would have been because we're responding.
And on that end of things, you had said, if I heard you correctly, that we're going to be about $7,000 over on ambulance personnel?
That was just an estimate I did really.
Yes,
quick
I understand.
before
It's
the
just an
meeting.
estimate.
What I did was I took what was on your page today and divided it by 8 and then times it out and we came out with about $7,000 left
And
ish, and we're pretty.
being
close to
just a similar line item, if we, and I don't have any wood, don't use all the firefighter services budget, we're able to move some of that over to ambulance.
Yeah, like I pointed out, the training halt that I put on there, I think is gonna save us the same amount of money as we're gonna be over an ambulance.
Okay.
So where you move it from, I don't know. I had
Yeah.
allocated the firefighter savings for the public safety payment, but you know, I'm just looking at the big picture saying, are we gonna hit that bottom line number or not? And
Understood.
And could we revisit as a select board the discussion on stop billing versus hard billing? We haven't done that for a while. I'm not advocating one way or another, but I think we have a 5-person board, and since we've added 2 more members, I don't think we've had that discussion.
Yeah, I would recommend we do that after you get the recommendation from the public safety committee.
Yeah,
We haven't really
absolutely.
discussed that in there. We could bring it up, but
Just kind of,
after we understand what we're gonna be doing or what their recommendation is more for the future, I think it would give a little more credence to that.
What kind of timeline are they operating under, to answer Kate's question?
I'm gonna try to get, or their charge is to get you guys a recommendation by early January timeframe, so.
I mean, it would impact
Okay.
revenue. We just have unanticipated revenue if we were to change. So I don't think it's a danger to have, to make a decision. Unless we
we're not
decided we
gonna-
weren't charging
I mean,
anyone
we're
ever.
not
and
gonna
then we
make a
would be in
change
trouble.
before this year anyway, and.
Yeah.
I think it just makes sense to look at that longer term picture before we have that. And then, yeah, we'll have a long philosophical discussion about that and how much you wanna pressure your residents.
Question on principle. So on page 9. Line item 472101,981. Is that payment still coming? So I know we had to make a double payment for one of the loans, right?
Public thing,
Right, so I assume that is why we have the overrun 4711,980,
Not entirely,
not entirely.
no. So anything that is a loan payment that is covered by the CIP fund, that gets washed out at the end of the year. You get a request, you put in a request to the trustees and we'll get reimbursed. And that's usually in the 200 something thousands.
Okay. And so that line item at 448,000, what do you know roughly what that mainly is? Is that building related or is that other stuff?
$461,000.
No, the 448, so the third line item. The one where we budgeted 448,049.
Oh, that one.
Does that come from the trustees?
So that's interest. And we may not have paid, the amount of interest that has been, we were estimating. Yet, we have, when we make the payments,
Like,
What is it? I don't know when the
are
public
there
safety
big
is due.
payments left? I'm trying to
Public
figure out,
safety was June.
I'm trying to
It
figure out.
looks way off.
Why we never
We'll
percent
have to
Yeah.
look at that. Because that would include the interest payments due for Whitney Hall and public safety, quite compared to the principal.
Right, and,
So we'll have to check where we're at with those.
right, like, are they expecting to use that all, or is it gonna partially offset that overrun on the two lines above? That's
I
kind of
think
my.
we're expecting to use that, because I think that our agreement is that we pay the full amount.
Yeah, let's double check
Full
though,
payment.
because I think all the payments are paid. So,
Is it possible that when it was booked, the principal expense was booked, if the interest wasn't split out of the principal expense?
It's possible.
But that's, no, I mean, it's
Yeah,
a common thing to do.
we'll-
You put it in
we'll
the
definitely
bottom
check
line
that.
instead of putting in the separate entries
Yeah.
that code.
double check.
Essentially look through the balance remaining, that's a big number, that's not a transfer.
Yeah, I usually do that too. That's the big
But the
thing.
22%, that makes more sense. Like,
Everyone ready to move on? The budget priorities, discussion of the select board.
I'll kick off real quick and get out of the way. The last page of your packet, there's a little write-up. I did talk to the select board a couple meetings ago about what their budget priorities were. I took some notes and just threw those down on the paper. But during that discussion and a little bit before, we've had discussions about really coming here and having that discussion together. Last year, we did that. It seemed to work very well. I didn't want to, and Eric thought it was a great idea to come here. Instead of them talking to me and me regurgitating some information to you and playing the telephone game, we could just have those conversations and try to get on the same page of what budget priorities are and where we should be headed as a town. With that all, I'm gonna turn it over to Eric.
Oh, for me, okay. No, you did a nice job of capturing sort of the comments that we made. And I think I would, just to reiterate it, our discussion was largely around being lean, but maintaining what we have and not taking on new projects at this point, but thinking about planning for the future. For example, we have to plan for 2 large buildings to maintain going forward, thinking about those things. But at the same time, not reducing the things that we're currently offering, but just sort of finding a new status quo as we build into as we move into new buildings and reach a new status quo. And then I don't know if other members of the select board would like to make their own comments to get us started.
No, it'll be a difficult task to estimate the costs of maintenance, not maintenance, the cost of running 2 new buildings because, for one thing, they're both gonna be essentially electrified. So our oil costs will go down, but it'll be very difficult to estimate that until we get into it. So it's gonna require Ed to just be able to take the existing budgets as we head into them based on past years and just use it accordingly until we know what the genuine costs of the new facilities are. We really won't know what they are. One nice advantage is that for the next 2 years, under both contracts, they have extended warranties. And there's nothing that we're going to be responsible for as far as a warranty is concerned for at least 2 years. Once they give us our CO, our certificate of occupancies.
Huh, that's good to know.
Yeah, that was something that came out of the MPAC committee's discussions was we extended from a 1-year to a 2-year warranty for both of those buildings, so. That was good. On the Whitney Hall side of things, I think we're fairly confident if we maintain the maintenance that we might actually even add a little extra there, but like you said, we're switching to electric. It's something we hadn't really done. We know we used a lot of fuel oil, so we're trying to adjust those things. And
Right, I mean,
so,
I think your future oil budget should become part of the future electrical budget.
Yeah.
Because we simply don't know what the heat pumps are gonna cost to run for Whitney Hall.
yeah, we're moving some of those around a little bit, but we're trying to maintain those. Again, getting the crystal ball out to figure it out is a little harder than we would think, but we also think on the maintenance side, we're gonna have 2 brand new buildings and should have, there's some upkeep, but there should be little to no maintenance that actually needs to be done in the next couple of years.
Well, hopefully, as far as fuel and everything else is concerned, those buildings are gonna be obviously way more efficient and, less costly as far as electricity, fuel and all that sort of thing.
I think the bottom lines will definitely be better, but we don't know what they're going to be until we start to run the
Right.
buildings per se and
Right.
have 12 months of history under the belt.
We're not gonna pump a barrel of oil and energy out the door every day.
Everything is-
So we're saying for Whitney Hall, the current maintenance cost will be what we go with in terms of next year.
I think it's gonna be for Ed to take that total maintenance budget and move it as necessary based on what the new categorization of costs are.
Right, understood. And the safety building is a different story because we have no idea.
Well, the architects and engineers should be able to give you a rough up, once, with what we've chosen for upfit, they should be able to.
We'll be okay, but I think we'll still be in the similar category, cause, instead of keeping the Depot Street and the other building at working temperatures, we can pull those down a little, so they're on the cool side, they're not letting things freeze, but they'll be a lot cheaper. That's gonna be a very efficient building. The police building can be very similar. Once we vacate that building, if it's not in use, we can pull that back. And so we'll be looking at that, and we can also talk to the electrician and different people that'll be able to help us understand what the overall usage might be.
The safety building is also heat pumps?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
With the exception of some gas, needed for the apparatus bay.
For the instant hot water, right?
Well, they have radiant heat, propane radiant heat in the fire base. So there'll be some propane, and then we have hydronic propane backup heat, which will be very minimally used, but it'll be there. So a little bit of propane costs, mostly electric.
The 3-phase power for the elevator is supposed to be more efficient too. I mean, that's marginal, but
3-phase power overall
Yeah.
is more efficient, and the heat pumps and the elevator, all of those things. And actually, the overall cost is slightly reduced. It pretty much washed in the end. But, the overall long-term operating cost will be less because it's 3-phase power.
There'll be an ongoing plan to inspect the buildings for any building
Yeah.
repairs that are needed and keep it.
We have a great facilities person now.
Yeah, I think his role will probably be to learn those 2 new buildings.
Yeah.
And become the point person for them. I'm optimistic that, for example, if somebody spots something, they don't have to go through you. They'll call him and say, hey, get a hold of Breadloaf and tell him to get over here and fix this lock. That will be part of his job, to learn and, in essence, help to manage those buildings.
Yeah. No, and he's doing that now on the ones that we have.
Because it doesn't say it outright in here, we're operating on the premise that we're maintaining the level of services that we have, correct?
That's what we discussed, yeah. Maintain what we have.
So that's the consensus now. We're not gonna try and look at options for reducing level of service or increasing. We just want to stick with the current line.
That's
that's the select.
That's a consensus of the board. That's the consensus of the board. Certainly, I've heard people are generally very pleased with the level of services that we're providing. I don't hear people asking for more. I don't hear people asking for less.
Oh, I think it's great.
Yeah.
But there's been enough discussion that I want to know we're not gonna try
And
and
it's all very fair discussion.
offer people choice.
Yeah.
I just wanted to know upfront what we're,
When we talk about lean,
Mhm.
what does that translate in terms of year-over-year budget?
I think it means that we're concerned not to engage in further significant projects. That's how I interpret lean,
We're not looking at adding new staff
Right.
positions.
but we are not looking at reducing staff. We are not looking at wages in terms of making savings in the wages we pay. We
Understood.
feel that it is absolutely crucial that we can maintain the level of services only by maintaining the level of staffing and keeping the really good employees that we have.
Does that mean that the select board is of the opinion that there's no room for efficiency gains and ability to cut costs?
No, but I think that the new buildings may end up helping us to that end. If, for example, we find that as a result of the new buildings, police staff are more efficient, I don't see personnel cuts, but there can be a more efficient use of time.
Right.
And we could find, for example, an ambulance could be a more efficient use of time. One of the great advantages to the new facility will be potentially an increased number of volunteers for the fire department and for the ambulance people, so that they're able to respond to more calls than we've had to rely on mutual aid for in the past. This can save money,
It could be a revenue generation too. I mean, if
potentially,
we were to get more of those to be paid, right?
potentially.
Because some towns are actually turn a profit. They're in the black on the whole ambulance. I know we have challenges. in our town.
Well, and they're running a for-profit
Yeah.
entity, essentially. They are doing transfers and are
I was
engaged.
gonna say, transports is where you make
Yeah,
your money
big
in
money.
ambulance.
So back to year over year, do we have I mean, what is the select board in your head? What are you thinking in terms of?
I would be, we're staying competitive with the area on wages, we're maintaining things, and it would generally be a CPI type thing, because you're not adding new things, but you're staying up with where expenses are in the reality of that.
And we
So
don't want
about
to lose
3%.
ground. No, we're not saying 3%. We're saying we don't want to lose ground and have to make up an 8% jump down the road, right? So be sensible.
Right, we went through about 15 years of not keeping up. And one of the things we had to do because of that was make very large year over year gains. We're now sort of where we want to be. We're right in the middle of the wage scale for the Upper Valley. And I think that's where the town of Enfield should be. We're competitive. We're not a leader. We're not behind. We're right in the middle, and I'd like to see us stay there.
And I think we also talked about, well, we're cutting back on some training funds. That doesn't mean our folks this year aren't getting any training. But we can't do that every year, right? We can't never bring in new paid training. So we want to be diligent about what we're choosing and making sure we're getting a good value and investing in our employees. And we don't want to just go cutting that off. There's a habit in this town over the years of congratulating ourselves for saving money. We save money and then we get to pay it really hard later. And that is not what we want to be doing.
Yeah, I think we're all painfully aware of that.
Uh-huh.
So we're not comfortable with setting a goal in terms of a number at this point. Percentage.
I don't think that makes sense for a select board, do you?
The number for
You
what?
mean for compensation?
Increase. No, I'm not talking comp, I'm
Tax
talking
rate.
total.
Just tax
Oh,
rate total.
Operating budget year over year.
I think it's part of the budget committee's job to look at the operating budget year over year and see if there are any anomalies that need to be questioned. But short of that, in order to maintain services, in order to maintain personnel, to keep an even keel, then I think the budgets that Ed and his team will present will generally stay at the point where they will maintain those levels.
Right, but I'm curious and I'm interested, what is the direction that Ed is giving his department heads in terms of, and I think you've touched on this in the past.
Yeah, I mean, it's been I gave it before we had this discussion with them, but it was the same thing. We're not looking at adding staffing. Let's keep our projects to a minimum. I mean, if we've been doing so many culverts a year, let's continue trying to do that. Let's not really get excessive on that unless we have a really good reason, then we'll come talk to you guys and that'll be a service level discussion.
Sure.
But for the most part, you're probably gonna see the paving line go up because paving cost went up. And so we'll put that increased value in there, but then when we have the discussion, we'll show you paving was this much a ton, now it's this much a ton. That translates to the amount of paving we've been doing. We're not
Big thing
looking
with the
to
tipping
add a
fees,
whole
the
bunch
the
more.
annual increase.
Yeah, whatever those annual increases are, we'll tell you. Some of them, fuel, some of those things are actually at or a little below where they were, and we'll get out our crystal ball for next year, but. You know, we'll throw those forward, and if things go down, they go down, and a few line items have. A lot of them that I'm seeing come in are, you know, we're just kind of maintaining the same budget, trying to get through. Training, you're gonna see a lot of places where we did not spend the budget, and that's because I stopped people from going to training. So we actually did cut out the planning conference, my municipal managers conferences, all those things that we normally go to get the training that we need, we stopped this year because of the budget problem. But we can't continue to do that year over year. We need to get back and get out there and, you know, some of the ideas coming back that are being adopted and really helping this town of Enfield are coming from those conferences. So
And some of the grants you've learned about. with-
some of the grants we've learned about, some of the new technologies that are saving us money in the long run. So we do need to continue putting those forward, but my charge to the department heads was same level we're at, as lean as we can get with what we have. As I've explained to you guys with our hard line expenditure on the bottom, I don't want to say there's some fluff in there, but there's little lines that we need in there to be able to maneuver a little bit.
Sure.
And, you know, so I really go over those, and I've went over most of them already, but we'll continue to just comb through those and pick away at what we can do. And, you know, we look at average spending, not average budget, and we look at what we're trying to do, and we try to put together the best budget that we can put together for you guys. I don't have a number for you yet either, but I'd like to keep it as low as we possibly can.
Okay, thank you.
I think going beyond the philosophy, I think one thing I can say, I have not kept up with inflation this year in terms of exactly where they are right now. But I would sort of expect, you know, if we're maintaining services, we'd be right sort of around wherever the inflation comes out.
CPI July to July, which is what we talked about last year. So we're going into budget with a
Yeah.
steady number was 3.5%.
So I would expect something in line with that, and then clear explanations for where things deviate from that.
And as far as the fund balance is concerned, it's stated about, you know, replenishing close to the 12%. Where are we at right at the moment?
I think when we were coming out of last year, we were talking that if we spent everything that was in there, we were somewhere in that 9% range.
Yeah, because we remember we voted on spending several, well, you were not on last year. You were on the,
Well,
what,
the last
We-
couple years with the higher tax rate, we've
Yeah.
spent some fund balance.
we spent most of the
Right.
fund balance.
Not most.
No.
We've spent some.
We spent it down into the lower range of our policy, which makes at least me very uncomfortable.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and I wanna bring that out too. You build the fund balance to that 12 to 15% range.
Mhm.
4 times when the tax rate's gonna be higher than it should be for a reason.
Yeah.
Adding those buildings on is the time when you use a little bit of your rainy day fund to try to level things out. I wasn't super happy that we voted to use them to directly pay down the tax rate, because that means we're paying it back this year. I mean, the projects we did, that's a great way to do it. You still get those projects done, but it's a one-time cost and gone. You're not gonna add it to the budget next year. So we do have a couple things coming forward. Buying down the tax rate, those types of things that are going to add to this year's number.
Yep.
So we made that decision last year. It's going to affect this year. So
So you're saying that the fund balance right now is around the 9% range?
it was, I won't know what we're sitting at truly until we get the audited number back.
Okay.
But yes, we had the long discussion when we decided to use that money that we would still be within the policy, but we are on the lower range of where we want to be in the policy. And it's time, you know, the buildings are into the budget now. We should be able to get a lot more lean on the tax increase side. It's time to start rebuilding that back to the 12%.
On the Whitney Hall, library project, last time talked about when you thought they were gonna be kind of wrapping it up. Is that still about the same?
Yeah, they're still saying the end of October, beginning of November timeframe. A lot of that hinges on the three-phase power project that made me about pull a little bit of hair and have out today, but when we get through that, we'll try to get power in the building as soon as possible, and the elevator renovation hinges on that. Probably the hardest subcontractor to reschedule if you have to, so.
And I have just a clarity question, kind of a, just talking about the budget, expenses and staff and all that sort of thing. So when I was reading the newsletter recently, it said that obviously Daisy's either going to have or has had a baby. And that the town clerk's office is gonna be closed a day during the week. Is that just closed to the public and Wendy's still gonna be working or,
Yes,
okay?
yeah, we need some time to do paperwork.
No, I totally get it and I understand, but just the way that was worded in there, I'm like, okay. I think this is how it's gonna happen, but
Has anyone announced to the public in a very obvious way that evening hours got eliminated?
Well, we put the schedule out, but we can,
Well, I think it was kind of dirty. I'm not gonna lie. I think it's slipping that in there and it's happened before and it makes people very, very upset. I took a solid clubbing last time this happened, when they switched days, and I think you don't just change the schedule. When you eliminate evening hours, you tell people there are no evening hours.
When you close the office, people get upset.
Well, but when you close the office, they get upset, but there's no evening hours in the schedule, ever.
we'll make it a little clearer in this next newsletter.
yeah, 'cause
I think that was not appropriate.
yeah, I agree.
We can make that clear, and
Why
I
was
mean,
that done?
definitely where we're at, I'm not gonna allow one person to work alone.
Oh, no, absolutely not, but you have to tell people the rationale and that you're doing it, or frankly, you're the operations manager. I know the town clerk doesn't work for you, but we could assign people to work.
It's called transparency.
But we can sign
That-
a person. The
Yes,
state doesn't let anybody else do it.
no, you could assign somebody to be in the building as the other human, I'm saying.
I'm not sure that's gonna change in the future either, because I don't think a clerk should be working at the new Whitney Hall all alone at night either. There will no longer,
should look at
after a
it.
few
I do-
months, be a police station next door.
I do have her,
Well, there's not always someone at the police station.
I do have her
Correct.
tracking.
Million.
I'll bring some stuff forward on that, but I do have her tracking the traffic on Tuesday nights and it's
Wow.
little to nobody.
I would say though, people also have told me, like, they come in and they say during election day, they were like, what happened to Whitney Hall and why is it closed? Listen, I know they live under a rock. I know they live under a rock, but the fact that, because some of these people come in once a year, right? And they get there and they're like, yo, there's like nothing over there. So I don't think that's fair, because the habit of like, you pop downtown, you do your thing at night. Some people still don't know La Salette exists.
We had a few people that went to the Whitney Halls, the ice cream social.
Yeah,
Before.
right.
And I think
thinking that.
no matter how hard you try, right? It's like the horse to water scenario. So I think it's not fair to track hours when you're in an alternate location. But we went through this when they told us nobody went to the dump on Sunday.
Right.
And I was like, well, I saw 3 people in line when I went by, and I'm sure that wasn't the only set of 3. So. Not a fan of that. And I understand they don't want to work evenings, but other towns offer weekend evenings. I mean, Canaan offers weekend. They're smaller than us. Just saying, I don't really feel like getting eaten alive.
So I guess we have no public, any other comments before we move on? So if there are no public comments on any other business, I think we probably already brought it up. Does anyone have any other business?
Make a motion to adjourn.
We have to adjourn separately.
Yes.
You wanna see if I entertain a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
Opposed? Select board is adjourned.
Second,
Second.
everybody agree?
Aye.
Really?